The January 26th regular meeting of the Planning and Land Use Management Committee of the Los Angeles City Council. My name is Marquise Harris Dawson, representing Council District 8 and the Vice Chair. Chairing today's meeting in the absence of our Chair, Councilman Huizar. We're joined by Council Members Cedillo and Fuentes. Mr. Clerk, will open the meeting with item number 5. Receive and file that.
Sure.
And then we'll next go to item number 1, for which we have a card from Wayne from Encino. I have 4 cards from Mr. Wayne. Can he speak for 4 minutes? And
Well, typically we do them individually for each item. We don't do them. We don't collapse them. But
all right, Wayne, you're on. 1 minute. Item 1.
Well, usually it makes an exception for me because they want me out of here because of my hat. Now you get to item 1. This is the destruction of Canoga Park and CD3 by the greedy SOB Bob Blumenfield, who we call Bob Blumen Stupid. And there is too much overdevelopment in these little areas like Reseda and Canoga Park, and the residents are getting very concerned about things like using the tools of the modified parking requirements. We don't want you to use tools. What we want you to do is enforce the zoning codes so we have sufficient off-street parking. Stop giving developers scumbags everything they want, raping the rest of us. That's why the FBI is in this building investigating you, because you cannot deal with things correctly. Stop the corruption and allow us to live in peace.
Thank you so much. Mr. Clerk, can you read item number 1 into the record?
Sure, Councilman Roberto Mejia from the CLA's office. Item 1 is a motion Blumenfield Bonin. It's instructing the Planning Department to work with DOT to explore parking options that will enhance Main Street in Canoga Park. And it's suggested that the Planning Department look into using a modified parking requirement supplemental use district.
Excellent. Is there a second? Second. Hearing no objection, this committee adopts that motion. Item number 2. Read that into the record.
Sure. Councilman, item number 2 is a report from the Planning Commission. This is a general plan amendment and a zone change for a 38-unit apartment building in CD2.
Excellent. We have 1 speaker. Wayne, stay close to the front.
Yeah, CD2 is also known as Paul Krikorian's district. So, what's he doing now? 2 lots totaling about 3/4 of an acre, 77 parking spaces, and this joke, 42 bicycle parking spaces. Really? Over there in Sherman Oaks, people are going to ride their bike to work and sweat, and then they're going to come in and they're going to work with all of that sweat and filth on themselves in Studio City? That's not the ghetto. You got to be properly groomed, and you have to be looking perfect. You have to be odor-free to work in Studio City. You can't be riding bikes. Get rid of these parking spaces for bikes. This has got to be a respectful area here. So anyway, I know you should vote no, but because City Hall is controlled by developers, you will unfortunately pass it.
Gentlemen, if there is a motion to approve. Second. Excellent. Hearing no objection, that item is approved. Item number 3.
Councilman, item 3 is a zone change in CD1. This is for a mixed-use project that will contain 166 residential units.
Wayne from Encino. Thank you for staying close.
Este es un distrito 1. No quiere estas unidades, estos proyectos. Hay mucho de estos que no parques, no tiene espacios de conducir no tiene nada, solo los judíos con todo el dinero que paga todo este consejos para pagar para estas putitos cosas. No quiere estos. Porque tiene estos sin parques, sin espacios de parque. ¿Quién es Maximum Development? ¿Es un grupo de chinos? No sé. No estos de mi comunidad, no estos de esta comunidad de latinos. Voto no. Pero el problema es que Dios está pagando con los judíos para estos putitos.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve this item? A second. Hearing no objection, that is the order. Item number 4.
Item 4, Councilman, this is an appeal by Fran Offenhauser, David Carrera, and Stephen Norman. This is relative to a vesting zone change and a height district change in CD 13, and it's for the construction of a hotel.
We'll hear from staff on this matter first.
And also, there's an ordinance associated with the item, Councilman.
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Oliver Neprin with the Department of City Planning. So the project that you have before you today is the demolition of an existing building and the construction, use, and maintenance of a new 11-story, 200-room, approximately 113,000 square foot hotel with ground floor retail, or ground floor restaurant and bar, and a rooftop pool deck with a restaurant. The project's located at 1523 to 1541 North Wilcox Avenue in the Hollywood Community Plan. The project requires a vesting zone change and height district change to allow for an FAR of up to 5.5 to 1, zoning administrator adjustments to permit reduced side yards, and a site plan review approval. The City Planning Commission approved the zoning administrator adjustments and site plan review at its September 10th, 2015 hearing. Both of those actions were appealed by 3 separate parties, both of which are before you for your consideration today. CPC also approved and recommended that the City Council approve a vesting zone change and height district change from C4-2D to TQ C4-2D to allow an FAR of 5.5 to 1. That action was not appealable, but it is also before you today for your consideration. The zoning administrator adjustment and site plan review were appealed by 3 parties, as I said. The major points of the appeal are as follows. The MND did not adequately analyze and mitigate potential noise impacts resulting from construction activities. The Planning Department has re-examined the noise analysis and mitigation measures and have submitted to this committee corrections to the noise mitigation measures, which you should have a copy of with you. The second appeal point was that the CPC did not make the necessary findings for the height district change. The Planning Department has also submitted for your consideration corrections to the zone and height district change, which you should have a copy of those findings as well with you. The third point was that the project conflicts with its vested rights by utilizing the recently adopted mobility plan. The applicant waived their rights to the old transportation element and thereby has availed themselves to the street dedications and improvements prescribed in the Mobility 2035. And then the fourth major item is that the project is not consistent with the community redevelopment plan and it has not obtained a CRA approval to build up to or above 4.5 to 1 FAR. The community redevelopment plan and the CRA they have the authority to find consistency or lack thereof is solely with the CRAs and the designated land use local authority. It is not under the purview of the City Planning Commission, or is it under the purview of the City Council. For these reasons, the Planning Department recommends that the Plum recommend denial of the appeals and approval of the zone change and height district change with the technical corrections that we've also submitted to you. And that would be our recommendation.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
So first we will hear from the appellants. The way we organize this part of the hearing is that there is 5 minutes for the appellant and 5 minutes for the applicant. I have Mr. Bett Mr. Weaver, and Mr. Carrera. You all can divide up that 5 minutes in any way you see fit.
Sir, there was one more appellant, Fran Offenhauser.
Okay, that's fine.
So it's still 5 minutes for 3 appellants.
Okay. So, Mr. Bett? Just come forward.
To the Honorable Plum Committee, I'll be using 3 out of the 5 minutes with a 1 minute reserved for Mr. Bettit and Mr. Carrera. May I begin?
Yeah, so since these are 3 separate appeals, you all actually each have your own time.
Yeah.
So since you already committed to 3, I'm going to hold you to that.
Well, may I take? I'll take 3, and then Mr. Bettit, can you have 2?
Sure.
Okay. So that'll be for the Sunset Landmark investment.
yeah.
Okay. So just to give an overview, this is a very large hotel project, a very dense hotel project in an area where it's going to be a skyscraper compared to the surrounding hotels it uses. We feel that there was a mistake in not requiring the preparation of an environmental impact report for a hotel with 200 rooms that's over 110 feet, and it's going to have a 9,000 square foot restaurant. A lot of these facilities will be open to the general public and to visitors. A couple of the major points we took issue with were the noise study seemed inadequate because it showed that the average noises would be the result of mitigation measures. Well, those average noises, as our expert will say, they're very loud and they're very significant impacts on the environment. And with those being the mitigated measures, an impact report should have been prepared. As far as the zoning adjustment to allow zero-foot side yard, there are no kind of unique components to the property that's requested to be developed. The property that exists, a 14,000 square foot warehouse, doesn't enjoy that benefit, and it's hard to understand why there'd be a unique situation for the hotel other than them simply wanting to maximize their floor area. I understand the impulse, but that's not a reason alone under the code. There needs to be some kind of reason to allow them 0 feet instead of 14 feet. Finally, I would submit to the committee that the developer had, back in February, argued that the CRA-LA does not have any jurisdiction or authority to enter into any more agreements. It submitted a letter dated January 22nd through its counsel that is here today. The report, as agreed, did not allow any leeway for a requirement to prepare an owner participation agreement, and it's clear that if they move ahead with this proposal, they're going to go ahead and argue that the CRA-LA is statutorily not required to be involved here. Thus, we think there's an issue as to even allowing a development over 2-1 until the city's taken its privileges back. With that, I'll allow Mr. Bettit to
Thank
come
you.
up and spend 2 minutes discussing noise.
Hi, I'm Aaron Batty. I work with Centec. I would like to talk about the technical memorandum dated January 7th, 2016 by Pomeroy Environmental Services. There's a couple of issues with what they're doing in this report. One of them is they keep referring to the noise as a peak noise. The mitigated negative deck actually has a average noise. It's an LEQ. The table 421 is an LEQ, not a peak. When we talk about peak, we talk about instantaneous noises. The analysis is actually an average. So they're referring to it as peak, and it's not a peak at all. It's actually an average. So the noise levels they're reporting will happen. Yes, it's the loudest thing, or hour, or LEQ that'll happen, but it's averaged over the period of time. The other part is they keep saying noise mitigation to the extent technically feasible. So they admit that they're exceeding the LA CEQA design guide by more than 10 dB, in some cases 50 dB above the ambient. So they tried to argue that they're going to put noise mitigation on the construction to the extent that's technically feasible. technically feasible would be some sort of detailed noise construction policy, some sort of this is the maximum noise level each piece of equipment can generate. And over in the analysis, they keep saying typical construction equipment, typical construction noise. If you're putting noise mitigation to the extent technically feasible, no longer is typical applicable. It's actually the quiet pieces of equipment and the quiet things. In their mitigation measures reported in that report, they talk about a schedule of on-site heavy equipment. The on-site heavy equipment is not necessarily the only equipment generating noise. Some stuff, like jackhammers, are the noisiest things on a construction site. They don't actually put any sort of schedule of how many pieces are allowed to operate at any particular time. They don't talk about how long these things are going to be operating. And if you're generating a noise level of 120 dB over an hour, an LEQ average of 120 dB, which is what they're saying they're doing, you would have to implement something a little bit more detailed than just some general equipment. During demolition, the only pieces of equipment they identify is an excavator and a dump truck. How are you demoing anything with just an excavator and a dump truck? The other part is the noise monitoring in their mitigation. If you're doing them to the extent technically feasible, you should be monitoring the entire time your construction's happening, not just for a short period of time that they're indicating in this report. Thank you.
So we have Mr. Batiste. Mr. Carrera, any?
So I was a little confused. Do I have 5 minutes or a minute? 5, okay. And then the last appellant has 5. Correct, okay. So my name's David Carrera. I'm a neighbor. For me, my appeal is all based on the rooftop use and my past experience living in Hollywood, what I've experienced with rooftop uses, and I just have always been looking for some really good conditions that protect me and my neighborhood. So some of those are closing at midnight, the rooftop use, no amplified music, things like this. The planning department recommended that they close at midnight. 2 other rooftop uses, hotels within a block, were held to midnight. LAPD recommends all new alcohol uses close at midnight, preferably 10. We have that in a letter that has been sent to the zoning administrator. So, they have a ground floor restaurant, which doesn't have any conditions on it. I would like to see the rooftop conditioned fairly for everybody. I still maintain in my appeal that they need a zone variance for outdoor dining above a ground level. If I understand Mr. Gonzalez's rebuttal to that point, he says that the CPC didn't approve any outdoor dining on the rooftop. Their plans that the CPC approved show a bar and outdoor tables. So if they don't intend to have outdoor dining on the rooftop, which is I think what his rebuttal has said, then they should not be opposed to a condition barring outdoor dining, or they need to seek this variance. And I think the last point I'm going to make, well, I have 3 minutes left. Am I reading that clock right?
Not required to take you.
Yeah, I know. I made one other appeal point about the 10-foot and 15-foot front yard dedication that I feel was required at the time that they applied for the project with the vesting zone change. The CPC gave them less than that based on the mobility plan, which wasn't adopted when they filed. They have now waived the right to their old, the transportation element from the general plan in 1999. I just don't think that you can do that. I still feel that those other dedications apply. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Now we have representatives of the applicant. We have Mr. King and Mr. One more appellant. What's the name? Did you submit a card?
Yes. Sorry. Should be there.
Councilman, she's also listed on the agenda.
Pardon me?
She's listed on the agenda as one of the appellants.
Okay, so that will suffice for the lack of a card? Okay, let's roll. Thank you.
Thank you, council members. My name is Fran Offenhauser, and I represent Hollywood Heritage. You have received, I assume, electronically information from us, and you have a handout with all the supporting documentation for what I'm going to say that I believe was handed to you now. Hollywood Heritage has been involved very deeply with planning in Hollywood to protect historic resources and the general planning in Hollywood for the last 35 years. And I personally have special knowledge in these cases. I was the outside consultant hired to write the Hollywood Community Plan, and I sat on the project area committee with the redevelopment area, and also was very much involved, integrally involved in the language of that redevelopment plan. My purpose in coming for you today is that I think you have the opportunity here in this case to turn the ship around. This process is a process essentially attempting to fly above the zoning code and to fly above the redevelopment agency and leave out the particular processes that the City Council, the City Planning Commission, the General Plan Advisory Board, and the Redevelopment Agency put in place for planning in Hollywood. Something is seriously amiss in the process in this case, and I will give you three examples. Although it's claimed that the project complies with the Hollywood Community Plan, in point of fact, the way you judge that is to look at the zoning. Because the Hollywood Community Plan, and I hope I'm not losing you, Hollywood is a very unique community plan, and the plan, if you look at many, many of the properties, they have D conditions. The reason there are so many D conditions is that the city was under a tremendous time pressure to put through the plan, the redevelopment plan, and the AB 283 zoning consistency. And the AB 283 zoning consistency, which is the D conditions on this parcel, is what is planned for this parcel. And those can only be removed by an action of the redevelopment agency. I've provided you all that supporting information. Essentially, this is a project that is allowed to build 41,000 square feet, and the ask is for 113,000 square feet. The number of units does not comply with the community plan. That kicks it in out of an MND into an EIR, and without getting into too much detail, in your package is the supporting evidence that says that you literally do not have the authority to make this decision, or if you make it, it has to be contingent on the approval of the Community Redevelopment Agency, both for the removal of the D conditions to take this project from 41,000 square feet to 113,000 square feet, and the Community Redevelopment Agency, or the DLA, the successor agency board, has to have a written agreement for this. That is not in place at the moment and has only even been initiated because I keep coming to these hearings. I also want to point out something that's very important for other projects that you look at. I think that this is a chart of the central Hollywood area, and this is the location of the project that we're talking about today on Wilcox, south of Hollywood Boulevard. These are the two metro stations, here and here. This is a plan prepared by the redevelopment agency to reflect its intent of the locations where it will grant an increase of 4.5 to 1 to 6 to 1 at these locations. There is no intent on this property to make that grant, and if that is granted, you, the City Council, the Planning Commission, insisted that there be a public purpose and a list of findings that had to be made to do it. Unfortunately, this is a case where somebody's asking for 3 times what the plans allow. Those plans were put in place. We're not anti-growth. that it's a smear campaign. It's not a question of anti-growth. It's a question, there is much, much, much growth built into the plan. The question is, does all that growth get concentrated on one person's property, one 20,000 square foot property on a side street where a truck can't get in? Does it get concentrated in that location, or does it get distributed according to professionally planned plans? Thank you. You have the information in your packet that backs up what I'm saying. I recommend that you can
Thank you.
continue.
You're over your time.
Thank you so much.
And our apologies. We had your card in the applicant stack, so we got a little mixed up. It's our fault. So representing the applicant, we have Mr. King and Mr. Gonzalez.
Hi, council members. My name is Grant King. I am the developer, one of the developers of the property. We're excited about the opportunity to showcase, years of blood, sweat, and tears. Hollywood is going through a renaissance. We are local developers. We have multiple projects in the area. This is a culmination of a lot of proactive meetings with neighbors, community people, and we've brought this project down and in, and we've tried to be proactive whenever we're developing a property. We're creating over 1,000 jobs, over 300 direct jobs. The project is fully funded. It is ready to go, and we are just asking you to approve our project. Thank you.
Good afternoon, honorable council members. Michael Gonzalez, representing the applicant. Wanted to point out that everything before you does not constitute any substantial evidence that the mitigated negative declaration is anything but good. In fact, it's all speculation and opinion, not supported by anything in the record. We do have our noise consultant here. If there are questions about noise, I'm not a noise expert. I would defer to our noise consultant, Brett Pomeroy, to address any questions you may have. In terms of the process, the zoning code grants the city council the authority to change zones, and that is what we are doing here. It's a zone change. CRA consent is not required. What is required by the redevelopment plan is an OPA when you exceed 4.5 FAR. We are in that process now. We're negotiating the terms of the OPA with the Community Redevelopment Agency, and we expect to have that document approved shortly after the council acts on this matter. The project would bring a 200-room hotel designed by local Hollywood architects Roshan Van Cleve. One comment was made that we are seeking an adjustment and there are no special circumstances. In fact, there are. We have an historic nationally registered building immediately adjacent called Citizen News. The reason we have the adjustments, and it's only for a very small portion of the front of the building, is to continue the datum line. So we have some architectural consistency with the historic building, and that's the reason why it's there. It's something that Bill Roshan of Roshan Van Cleve strongly encouraged us to do, and something the planning department really sought so that we can keep a nod to the past, but a continuation of the future, which is what we've done here, I think, in a very eloquent way. The proposed operator is the Thompson Brand Hotel. They're a fantastic operator. We're looking to revive this stretch of the boulevard. As you can see, there is height around us. There are buildings that are tall around us. There are buildings at 6 FAR around us. As Mr. King said, Hollywood is experiencing a renaissance. We had it. We had it occurring in 2007, then we experienced the calamities of 2008. That renaissance is reinvigorating, and we're starting to see appropriate sized buildings of scale and intensity in this transit core. The appeals assert that we seek variances. We do not seek any variances here. We do seek the adjustment, and I explained the reason for that adjustment. The appeals assert that we are inconsistent with the community plan. This property is designated as regional center, and it's envisioned for intense use, 4.5 to 6 FAR, if not more in some places. It's one of the few locations downtown Hollywood, and I believe there's a couple more, Koreatown, where you have a regional center location. It's meant to draw people from the region, not just the local area. That is what Hollywood is. It is a regional center. It was proposed to continue as a regional center in the now rescinded Hollywood Community Plan. So we are consistent with the community plan. In terms of the redevelopment plan and our consistency, the community plan was amended, the redevelopment plan was amended in 2003 to punt to the community plan for consistency. So we are consistent with all of those documents. We are utilizing all the appropriate procedures, and we are in the appropriate mechanism for your authority to grant us the additional FAR and allow the continued revitalization of Hollywood. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have public comment on this item. John Garoto, excuse me if I'm pronouncing that wrong, and Gideon Krakov. You all have 1 minute each.
John Girodo, representing Hollywood Heritage. Hollywood Heritage is compelled to appeal projects affecting historic resources or setting precedents which will be damaging to historic resources or the plans in place to protect them. A no vote today reflects the project as inconsistent with the Hollywood Community Plan. A no vote today recognizes that city planning has no authority to speak for the redevelopment agency to remove deconditions or grant 5.5 to 1 FAR. A no vote today or a conditional vote is necessary until you see a response from the CRA. And a no vote today recognizes that an MND is unacceptable in this case and is it warranted for an EIR. Thank you for your reconsideration.
Thank you.
Vice Chair, council members, my name is Gideon Krakov. It's a pleasure to address you in the Roy Ballroom, one of our most beautiful venues. I'm here for Clients Unite Here, Local 11, and Robert Mazariegos. The project's here for two things: discretionary findings to allow the zone and height district change, and two, to consider the appeals. We all agree this is not a by right project, and these findings are not easy. The courts are routinely reversing the city's zoning exceptions in Hollywood, the Target on Western, Sunset Gordon, the Millennium, all because you can't clear the high bar required for these special zoning exceptions. Now you're hearing about how the project is not consistent with the general plan, about how the increased floor area does not comply with the Hollywood redevelopment plan, about how you cannot make the special public welfare findings to allow for a zero side yard. This project, as proposed, does not merit the special zoning exceptions. We've got a project with increased traffic, noise, and land use impacts that fails to accommodate the public welfare, or for that matter, the workers. The findings cannot be made. Thank you.
Mr. Jose Malagon. Gilbert Smalls, maybe? Smith. It's a long day.
Good afternoon. My name is Jose Malagon. I'm the chair of the Cahuenga District Coalition. It's a group made up of business and property owners in the area where this project is proposed. And for many years, we've been working together to turn the area around and revitalize it. Mr. Grant and his team have come in and have made a very sizable commitment to help us in that effort with other projects he has on the works. And we feel that this particular project on Wilcox will definitely add to our efforts to revitalize our area. So we look forward to it because not only will it provide jobs, as was mentioned earlier, it obviously is going to attract many new people into our area that will hopefully patronize our existing businesses. So we are in full support of this project. Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Gilbert Smith, and I'm chair of the Ricardo Montalban Foundation, owner and operator of the Montalban Theater on Vine Street in Hollywood. Seeing that I was charged to revitalize a theater that had been abandoned in Hollywood, I've been witness to our revitalization and our renaissance. One of my key projects at the theater was to build a roof court, which is a 6,000 square foot area of activity and destination for members in our community and others who are touring the Hollywood area. We have experienced ways and, let's say, technical means to control the ambient noise that is generated with a rooftop. We're using Wi-Fi for our motion picture reviews and screenings, and we also have dances that have Wi-Fi, which is called silent disco. And I've talked with Mr. King and his associates in regards to different ways that they can service their people.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Mr. Cole Shahinian, Alfredo Hernandez, and Wayne from Encino.
Good afternoon, Nicole Shahanian with the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce. I'm here today to offer the Chamber's support of the proposed hotel project at 1541 Wilcox. The Chamber believes this project will help revitalize this area of Wilcox and bring much-needed hotel rooms to one of the most visited parts of Los Angeles. We're also excited to hear about the local jobs hire that they have in place, and I'd like to let Michael Gonzalez use the remainder of my time to talk about it.
We don't do that.
I quickly, council
We,
members, I
you
forgot to
can't.
mention.
Sorry, you cannot do that. She has to say it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Alfredo Hernandez, founding board member of the Hollywood Network Coalition, a broad-based coalition of Hollywood residents, businesses, educational institutions, and nonprofit organizations. Views in support of and against this project were vetted during a lengthy question and answer session of the Urban Policy Committee, which I chair. The committee determined it would support the project. Our full board also voted to support this project with a rooftop similar to Soho House as requested by board member David Carrera, with no live music and no dancing. This rooftop is vital to this project in a climate like Los Angeles. We believe this is a sound project that continues the revitalization of Hollywood, that provides 30% local hire and tourism jobs. We urge you to deny the appeals and to support this project. Thank you.
Thank you. We have representatives from Council District 13.
Good afternoon, council members. Chris Robertson, Planning Director for Councilmember Mitch O'Farrell of the 13th District. We're here today to express our support for the proposed project. The councilman is confident that the new hotel will be a world-class establishment and contribute greatly to Hollywood by complementing the tourism industry and enhancing the pedestrian experience by activating Wilcox Avenue with new commercial uses and streetscape improvements. The applicant is a major stakeholder in the community. In addition to the proposed hotel, they are developing the Tao Restaurant and Dream Hotel, both currently under construction. These projects are transformative for the area and contribute to a safer, more vibrant community, bringing jobs and new commercial and entertainment options to the neighborhood. Throughout the project design phase, our office worked with the applicant to reduce both the height of the building by approximately 40 feet and the number of rooms by 20. We have also circulated a condition that we propose to address community concerns related to noise. The new condition will require the outdoor rooftop area to close at 12 a.m. versus 1 a.m. and prohibit noise impacts beyond the property. We've also proposed a plan approval be required after 9 months. We believe that the project modifications and new conditions will preserve the livability of the adjacent residential neighborhood while allowing the hotel to flourish. Thus, we respectfully request the committee approve the project with the proposed modifications. And I would just like to clarify that the condition I circulated has been slightly modified at the last minute to clarify that the outdoor area, and it should be handwritten on the copy distributed to the committee, will close at 12 a.m., allowing amplified music, but not after 12 a.m. And then the plan approval is not included in the copy distributed to you. That was something recently added in and proposed to be required after 9 months. Thank you very much, and I'm available for any questions.
So, is there a motion that we deny in part and approve in part with conditions presented as presented by Council District 13? So moved. Is there a second? Second? Any objection? Nope. That is the order. That takes us to general public comment. We have Wayne from Encino.
Now you can go upstairs. They're having the Ad Hoc Comprehensive Job Creation Plan Committee. You're invited. Yes, they are going to create jobs, right? Sure they are. Now, across the street, the FBI completed its investigation of the Nuri Martinez campaign and determined, well, in excess of dozens of people were small campaign donors, and they gave money unknowingly, which means they were signed up by people unknowingly. They unknowingly gave to a campaign. So many of these people were given a subpoena. They were testified before the grand jury, and they said, did you give this $10 donation to Nuri Martinez? They said, who the hell is Nuri Martinez? I never gave anything
This
to
isn't
Nuri
in the purview of this
Martinez.
committee.
It's
Thank you.
It's within the general jurisdiction of the city, right? So everything focuses on how you get elected in this city. And the way you elect people is that you do it through chicanery, bribery, and corruption and RICO violations, which now
you got to speak to issues related to this committee.
the committee is basing itself on elected officials who take our city, rip it to shreds against the wishes of everybody that comes in here. No, the community doesn't want any of this garbage. But you see, they know it's a lost cause. So the only way you could stop you guys is to litigate rather than being
you're correct.
represented.
If the item doesn't
You have
stay
to
on-
be represented.
Yeah.
subject matter.
That's your time.
You have to
Thank
be
you.
represented in court instead of this damn place.
Committee is adjourned. Thank you all so much.